Hi, everyone. I'm Becca Pad. I'm the library director at the College for Creative Studies.
And I'm Nadine Ashton, the Dean of Academic Affairs at CCS.
So today we're here to talk to you about academic integrity and what that means for your time at CCS. So we wanted to start by just talking a little bit about the question of what does academic integrity mean to you? And to help talk about this, we want to show what some of the responses were from students in previous semesters. So I'm going to share my screen and pull up a word cloud. So when we asked this question to other students, these are some of the terms that they came up with. So the biggest one that you see in the middle is honesty. So other words we see are originality, we see no plagiarism, responsibility, doing honest or good honest work, and doing your own original work. And we see that a few times. We see trust, we see authenticity. So there's a lot of different phrases that come to mind when we're thinking about academic integrity and what that can mean. And really, there's not one right answer, but those are just some of the ways to kind of help build a communal definition of what that can mean for your time here as a student. And throughout this presentation, hopefully it'll help you to get a sense of what that means and why it's really important to keep this in mind throughout your coursework and your time here. So I'm gonna turn it over to my colleague Nadine to get us started with talking a little bit more about academic integrity, specifically at CCS.
Thanks, Becca. So I'm just going to talk about why academic integrity is important. And the first item is really about trust. And it's the CCS academic environment is where you begin to build your professional reputation. So it's where you're given freedom to fail and succeed. It's about building your character and who you are. Essentially, you're saying, I did this. So it really is about building trust. And that's what we're trying to create, a safe space for you to do. Academic integrity is also about giving credit where credit is due. So when you adhere to those academic integrity guidelines, you're basically setting standards of fairness. So if Becca put a presentation together, then I want to give her credit for doing that. And it shows that I'm giving the author credit, but I'm also appreciative of her talents, and other people can look up her research and consult her because she is the expert in this area. And finally, you become part of the artistic community. So when, just like I said, when you cite others' work and give credit to others, it allows you to become part of the conversation, and others know where you got your resources from, and they can cite you as a result. So that is why academic integrity is important at the college.
Great. Thanks so much, Nadine. I think something that would be really helpful for our students to know are some of the examples of violations that you've seen at the college so that they have a sense, right? You've talked a little bit about why it's important at the college, but what does it look like when someone maybe gets into trouble with academic integrity?
There's a lot of different types of violations. You could, buying papers is one, submitting the same work in different courses, cheating, unauthorized collaboration, falsifying data or records. But so we think of, academic integrity as, okay, there's written plagiarism. There's using another person's language or ideas without proper acknowledgement. That's a very typical type of academic integrity violation, if you will. So I tell students all the time, when using the exact words of another in a presentation or written materials, those you have to place those words in quotation marks. So you have to give credit to the original source, proper citation of the material, and then you're good. Right? So that's one type. There's creative dishonesty. Artists and designers commonly draw on the work of others for reference or inspiration, or the conceptual use of an appropriated image. This type of exploration is to be expected. So, but there is an important distinction between drawing inspiration from a piece and copying it. So again, it boils down to giving credit where credit is due, and always citing the inspiration. So I've had students, it's basically copying, but you really have to say, I took this work from so-and-so as an inspiration piece and I modified it in this way. Okay, so you have to be honest with your faculty member or the other students about how you modified a piece. So that's one thing. And then you can always consult your department chair or faculty person for clarification as to what practices do or do not constitute creative dishonesty. So you really have to stay in communication with your faculty person.
Great. Thanks, Nadine. I think that's really helpful to just get some ideas about what that can look like. I guess the question that I would have if I was a student would be, what happens if my instructor files an academic integrity violation report? What goes on? What should I expect to happen? If you could talk a little bit about that, I think that would be great.
Sure. So faculty or staff, even staff who suspect a violation of academic integrity should inform the student of the nature of the violation. And so they would advise the student, that they're going to fill out an academic integrity violation report, and that would come to the academic affairs office. In some cases, a student will fess up immediately and say, yep, I did it, and I accept the sanction that you give me. And we may still have a conversation about it, that you, the faculty person, and it may be something like for a first attempt, failure in the assignment, and you kind of, just own it if that's what happened. But what normally happens is the faculty member would identify and collect evidence of the alleged violation. And so they would provide that evidence, such as comparisons of writing samples or the creative process, witness statements, and then they would submit the report. And within 7 days of receiving the report, I would schedule an appointment with either the faculty person, the student, the chairperson of the department, myself, and students also have, they can also have a student advocate present so that you can have somebody on your side, and the student advocate may attend the hearing at the student's request. You don't have to have them attend the hearing. It's up to the student. So I like to frame these meetings as conversations about what happened. And then we would have a conversation about the nature of the offense, the severity of the damage, injury or harm resulting from the offense, and the student statement, and all that would be taken into consideration. We would have outcomes of the hearing determined by the instructor, the department chair, and we would communicate that with the findings. So the student gets a chance to state their case, and then the faculty person would get a chance to state their case. And there have been some really interesting cases that we've seen that you don't think would happen. But I did have one case where, interestingly enough, a student that, it was a foundations level class. And so there were 2 different instructors, 2 different classes, and they put all the work up on the wall at the end of the year, unbeknownst to the students. And there were 2 different students that submitted the exact same piece. And we found out that one student stole another student's work from a different class from Instagram. And it was a lesson to everybody, because the student who posted it on Instagram realized the importance of signing their work. And then the student who actually did the plagiarism was very honest at that point. Once they were caught, said, I was just too tired. I didn't, I wasn't thinking. They were very professional about it and said, yes, I did this. But it just provided a forum for us to say, okay, this is why this was not okay. And you did cause damage to this other student by stealing this work. So that's really what the hearings are for.
Great, thanks. I think that's really helpful to get a sense of what to expect if that ever happens to you.
And just so you know, like the penalties are, like I said, a first offense could be just failure in the assignment. A second offense could be failure in the course, and repeated offenses could be dismissal from the college. So those are the varying penalties that we see, and sometimes no penalty at all. Sometimes these cases do go in favor of the student. I've seen cases like that too, where a student was accused of plagiarizing and provided like a 30-page PowerPoint and all of her work. It was actually creative dishonesty. It wasn't plagiarism, and all of her work and all of her design process, and was found innocent in that case. So
Yeah,
sorry.
I think, no, that's a great point. Just for students to keep in mind, keeping your sketchbook and making sure that you're documenting the process that you're going through in the creation of a work, whether that's a creative work or even if you're writing a paper, right? Keeping track of your citations, keeping all of your information organized so that it's just good practice as a scholar and a student in general, but also if you ever find yourself in this situation like that student, you can really easily demonstrate the work that you've put into your project. So that's helpful to know.
I mean, we want it to go both ways, like.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess my next question for you would be, is there a statute of limitations on having an academic integrity violation, called against a student?
Well, the short answer is no. Once a violation is submitted, it's in your academic record and it stays there. And if a second violation is committed, it may be failure in the course, or like I said, or dismissal from the college. But that being said, it goes into your record so that we know in case there's a second offense, but nothing else happens to it. It's not going to go onto your transcript. It's not going on your employment record. It's really just the people that were involved in that case, and it stays private.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Yep.
And then I guess my last question for right now is, what is the student's responsibility?
I mean, I think the responsibility is to cite your work. Just always cite your work. Use your CCS resources. So you can consult with you, like members in the library staff, I know are always willing to help. Members in the Center for Tutoring and Writing are always willing to help. And then consult your faculty members. I've had students ask me, well, it's so hard because there's so much stuff on the internet now, and there's so much stuff out in the world. Like, how can I possibly be original? Like, that's a big concern for people.
Mm-hmm.
So I think consulting your faculty member and using that, okay, this is an inspiration piece for so-and-so from so-and-so, and I modified it. I think that's important and going a long way, is like communicating what you're trying to do and citing your resources as you do it.
Great. Speaking of resources, we wanted to point out a research guide that's available on the topic of academic integrity. It's actually linked in this Canvas course under library resources, but we wanted to briefly walk you through it so you know what you can find there. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we'll talk a little bit about this guide. So on the academic integrity guide, there is some of the information that we've been going over today as a recap for you. There's also citation information. So something that we did talk about today is the importance of citing your work, whether that's citing, your inspiration for a creative project or citing your sources for a research paper. And this tab goes over how to cite your sources, including citing visual work, which sometimes can be a little bit more ambiguous about best practices and how to do that. So we try and help you through that. There's also a different video on MLA citation, because MLA is the primary style that is used in your liberal arts courses at CCS. There is also a link. I'm not going to click on it right now, but this will link to the research and writing guide. And so if you have questions about conducting research or more in-depth questions about writing in your undergraduate classes or your graduate classes, this is a place to look. And lastly, we have a tab on faculty perspectives on plagiarism. So you're hearing from us today talking about academic integrity, but these videos are pretty cool. And if there may be a faculty member in your department who's featured here, and everyone has a different perspective on how do we, like, if you want to know about how people do creative remix, right? Reusing others' work in your creative work, Scott Northrup is a great resource. Jeremy Noonan talks about how to be mindful of, copying and using others' work in creative projects as well. So there's lots of different people who are talking about this topic just to help you get a bigger picture of the scholarly conversation around reusing others' work. So if you have questions about academic integrity, as we talked about today, there's resources on the library website. There's the Center for Tutoring and Writing, and you can always ask your department chair or your faculty member for help specifically about questions related to academic integrity in a certain subject area. So we hope that this helps you to get started, and we'll just ask that you complete the other requirements of this module. And welcome to CCS. We're so excited to have you here, and we wish you a lot of luck in your first year at the college.
Thank you.